So, the question I'm about to address is quite a fundamental question to what I see my purpose as being in the language. Sorry, I'm just crossing the road. In the language learning community, if you will. So, everyone will assent that if you put in the hours learning a modern language like French or Russian or Chinese or Tamil or whatever it is, you'll get to a stage, if you really, really work hard, you'll get to a stage quite happily where you can understand it like your native language. What I mean by that is someone will speak it and you won't have to translate it into your head. You know, you'll just know, or you read something and you'll just instantly know what it says. You won't have to think about it at all. It will be like it's written in your own language, except it's obviously not. And it's quite a weird one to wrap your head around. But I think everyone will assent that's true. And this is what fascinates me about language, is that, I'm just here walking, I'm about to walk up to Curry Mile in Manchester, and it's lots of stuff written in Arabic, and, you know, or in the Arabic script, I should say. I think a lot of it's in some of it's in Farsi, you know, some of it's in Arabic, I think. Don't really know. But, you know, I used to not be able to read the Arabic scripts, and it was just all squiggles to me. But I walk past it now, and I can't understand Arabic at all. But I've been able to I've learned how to distinguish at least half a dozen of the letters, and all of a sudden I can identify words in it, and now I can read. I'll get to a stage where the Arabic writing that just was once a bunch of scribbles will be actual letters to me, as almost as vivid as that of my native language. Really weird thing, you know. And what's even weirder is someone can speak a language. You have two people in the room. One of them doesn't speak a language. One of them does, and someone else speaks that language. The person who doesn't speak that language, it will just come out like a bunch of weird sounds. But the person who does, it will make perfect sense. That's the thing that's really fascinating me about languages, is this weird codes that you can just break. But, you know, it's not like you how do I put this into words? It's so much more than just being able to identify what it says. It's really understanding a language goes deep into your brain. You know, like, I think you know what I mean. I wish I could put it into words better than that. And this always fascinates me about languages. Everyone can assent that you can learn a modern language to fluency very easily. Question of whether you can learn a dead language to that same extent is a question that really interests me, because there's something about learning a dead language that is just sends a shiver down my spine, because the beauty of learning a language, you know, dead or living, is that you're accessing something that doesn't, as something that's new, something that's different. You're accessing a new world. And with a modern language, invariably you're accessing a world divided to you by borders, by geography, by culture, a combination of those kind of things, if not all three. Generally two of them. But learning a dead language, you're not only, in most cases, divided by all those things, but you're also divided from this language and culture by something far, far greater, and that is time. And it just sends a shiver down my spine to think that you could be able to learn a language. You could be able to learn a language like dead language and get good enough at it that reading it would be as vivid and as engaging as reading your own language. Like there's a voice from the past just reaching down to grab you. And this is what's always fascinated me about dead languages and what's motivated me to learn them. But what I've found about the study of ancient languages, I should say, in modern scholarship in universities today, is that there's no real focus on getting to a point anywhere near approximating the ability to read, the ability to comprehend a modern language. And there is some justification to this, because the reason that most people get into studying ancient languages today, it seems, is not so much to have this hands reaching down and grabbing you from the past, but it's more about looking at language from a more analytical standpoint, like you might analyse, people analyse language all the time in variety of places like MI5, if a suicide note or terrorist threat, or I don't really know to be honest, but whatever. They'll do that, Anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, it was more analytic, and for the purpose of translating ancient texts into your native language. If you have access to a dictionary and a good enough grasp of grammar, which undeniably all modern translators, all modern academics do, then there's no real need to be fluent in the language at the level that I think it is worth studying that language to, because that's not where the needs to. There's no need. There's not the same need to. You get your payback much quicker. See, just on that wall there. Look at that. So there it says Al Taiba. Before I really knew about the Arabic abjads, wouldn't have ever guessed that, but now the English is at the top of it. But anyway, so my mission really has been, how do you study a modern ancient language to fluency? Is it possible? And is it possible? Yeah. Now, with my mission in doing this, I have generally thought, no, it's not possible. It doesn't seem to be possible. I remember when I was in sixth form in college, and we were studying a bit of Livy, who's a Roman historian, and there was one sentence that got us really confused, and it just didn't make any sense. Now, this is a convention of Latin writing that they will put a full stop. They'll abbreviate most first names by putting a full stop and the letter of the first name, letter of the first name in capital and then a full stop. So, for example, Marcus in Latin name. In Latin, that would just be an M and a full stop. And I think this was the example. Or Lucius, it's just an L and a full stop. Gnaeus, just a C, N and a full stop. There's another reason why it's a C and not a G, but that's a story for another time. So, anyway, turned out the reason we got stumped on this sentence was because the full stop was not the end of the sentence, it was abbreviation for a name, and our teacher, not even our teacher, realised this. And she's, one would think she would, you reach a stage in Latin where you studied it for so long that you just instinctively know, oh, yeah, boom, that's the full stop. For an abbreviation, not for the end of a sentence. And it perplexed me that she didn't know this. And I thought, well, maybe Latin is just not possible to learn ancient languages. Maybe this is why no one really studies them to fluency. It's because it's just too hard and there's too much of a gap to speak them. But I wanted to get to the bottom of this question, and so I started studying a lot of Latin, really trying to use the methods that I did for modern languages, just mass exposure. This is something that they didn't really do in any Latin environment. It's just Latin teaching environment. It's just mass exposure to the language you're speaking. So that's what we did. So lots of exposure. That's what I did. And I'm at a stage now where I'm still a very long way off fluency, which frustrates me because I've spent a lot of work on this. I'm working on this a lot. I'm still a very long way off it looking like English to me. But what I've realised from my method of mass exposure, which I'll talk about in another video, is that given enough time, and I'm not prepared to say how much time this would take, but given enough time, you would be able to understand Latin like a modern language, 100%. That's not something I would have said a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago. No, that's something I wouldn't have said a year ago. A year ago I would not have said that, because I didn't know the answer to it. I didn't know if that was possible. But now I absolutely think that's possible. I think it would take an extraordinary amount of work to get there. I've spent so long learning this language. I'm still so far off anywhere I want to be. It's still my ability to translate, look words up in the dictionary, I can do it very quickly. I'll be able to translate the Aeneid tomorrow. I'll do a great job on it. But still not quite got that ability just to reach in to the past and understand exactly the nuance of what's being said. But I could get there, 100%. So, just to sum up, I think it's incredibly difficult to learn an ancient language. I think the main reason for this is you don't have a lot of quick access to good material. You don't have quick access to easy material. So when I learnt Italian, it was incredibly easy to make progress very quickly, because it's very easy to find Italian films, Italian TV shows that have very simple sentences in them. It doesn't require great amounts of thought to sort of process the grammar structures and the vocabulary. It all comes quite naturally. But with an ancient language, there's not the same. The only things that are conveyed in ancient languages really are going to be quite important and complex ideas that are going to be expressed in very difficult ways. So you're really fighting an uphill battle with ancient language. So that's why that's one of the reasons why I think it's harder. There are especially more recently, there's a bit of a sort of revival of Latin, this manner of learning Latin. You do have some documents, some material. Oiberg series is a good example a good modern example of this, where people would learn Latin. It's basically a very simple Latin book, and it just says stuff like Roma est in Italia, and that's the first sentence of it. And even if you've never learned Latin before, you might be able to understand that means Rome is in Italy. And the way this textbook works, it just has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these really simple sentences, and your brain gets more and more familiar with it as it goes on. Problem I have with that is it's not very engaging. My brain switches off very quickly. So I'm not actually, although it's a great way to learn it, I'm not engaged with the material enough to really process it. So I find it more effective to learn Latin from a more difficult text, because my interest is spiked so much more by that. Like I'm reading Attic Nights at the moment, and Ars Amatoria, and I get so much less of it than I would if I was reading more basic Latin books. But I am much more attuned to what I'm much more engaged in it, and I believe I'm making more progress from that than I was from using more simple resources. You don't have this problem in modern languages because there's access to lots of simple, generally, there's access to lots of simple content in your language that's instantly engaging. And my advice to you is, even at quite a basic level, but particularly if you're quite advanced, or even at an intermediate stage in the language, is just to fucking get through as much content that's simple and engaging as you can. To use the example of Italian, it's Segura. It's a Netflix show in Italian. I just watched that I watched it in English, and just each episode. Didn't understand a lot of it to begin with, but it really. Oh, thank you. really soaked in Italian over time, and that's really improves drastically my ability in the language. You know that in ancient languages, that's part of what makes it more hard. But I want to show you the discovery of my Latin. I don't like it, but I know I've just got to stick at it, and I might never reach the stage where I'm fluent in it, that I want to be at. You know, it is definitely possible. I've met people who can speak Latin fluently, but do I want the life they have? Do I want to sacrifice what they've sacrificed to be able to speak Latin fluently? Who knows? That's part of what I'm going to find out. So our plan at the moment is to keep studying Latin, keep reading in Latin as much as I can every day, even if it's just a page or two. I'll carry that on until the summer of 2023, to the end of my undergraduate degree, and we'll see. By that point, I might be able to tell you exactly how to study a language, an ancient language. I'll sell you a course and make a lot of money off it. But until that day, we'll just see how it goes. But it's definitely possible. The question is, what sacrifice are you willing to take?